Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this October 30th, 2015 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can catch my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's Pacific time on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. And, I've got to mention something. I've gone through the last 24 hours not realizing what day it was. I woke up yesterday thinking it was Friday and acted accordingly. And then today, about a half hour ago, I realized that it was Friday. I thought it was Saturday all day until about a half hour ago. And have you ever done that in your life? I have an excuse. I was worried all week about my dog who's having an operation at the vet's, and I lost track of the days, lost a lot of sleep, and report though she's doing fine right now, and I just picked her up a little while ago, and she's resting comfortably with me right now, and hopefully she'll bark in the show to show that she's recuperating fine. But anyway, I'll explain about the operation another time. But it was quite, it's interesting. I've had Miss Moose, one of my dogs, for almost 14 years, and they become a good friend. We communicate in a different way than people communicate, and the way people communicate today, it's no wonder that, I think I should learn dog language and forget about the English language because it's so bastardized. There's so many things that are the words that we've diluted everything that we say. I mean, we don't ever say the truth about anything, and we use words that are so politically correct that we don't even know what we're saying anymore. I liked it, when I grew up, we used to say things the way they were, and I could give you 100 million examples, but we can do that. I save that for my comedy show. Because a lot of times you need to see the delivery to get a laugh out of it. So I don't want to waste my time here. This show, I usually do kind of serious stuff and things that are really going on, kind of a journalistic side of me, which was my originally chosen profession. But anyway, have you ever gone through 24 hours realizing not what day it was? And when you figure it out, you go, oh my God, am I having a senior moment? Am I getting old? So I had to put myself through a battery of questions. What's my uncle's name? What's your middle name, Greg? How old are you, Greg? What school did you first go to? What was your kindergarten teacher's name? That one I don't remember, and that's a good thing. But anyway, everything checked out, so I still have my mind intact and able to do the show. But anyway, it is Friday, even though I thought it was Saturday, and today, on Friday, sometimes I like to do a lot of different things, just looking back at life, talking about things that just pop up in my mind. And I think about the craziest things sometimes. I don't know about you, but I think about things like all these little things I did in my life when I'm just walking. Have you ever thought about that? What do you do when you walk? Do you walk just to walk? Or are you actually walking to think about something? Do you want to go somewhere? What about those walks you have that are just aimlessly walking and you end up somewhere you've never been before and all of a sudden you see something? Are you really looking at everything you see? No. People walk blindly. I was walking by, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. It reminded me of when I used to live in Rome. I spent more time, I think I've walked every cobblestone street in Rome. And I don't think there's been a time that 20 seconds passed without somebody saying hello to me or somebody doing something or me saying something to someone. And I said I lived like that for 7 years. Very social, very social. It changed me a lot. And one of the things I remember when I came back from America, back to America, which was after 7 years in Italy, that was a bigger cultural shock than when I left. And when I came back, one of the things I found is how unsociable people are. I landed in New York, Midtown Manhattan, going to my uncle's apartment, and I'm walking down the street. I just got off I think I landed at the Kennedy, took a subway to Midtown and then started walking down the street. And I'm walking, it's like people filing one way and the other people going this way, like on a conveyor belt. And some guy forearm shivered me, right? And if you know what a forearm shiver is, that's a football term called raising up your forearm and then smashing it against the person. Well, he caught me right in the chest. And that was my introduction back to America. I found that from the time I left Kennedy to I got to my uncle's apartment, nobody said a word to me, didn't even look at me. And that was a really cultural shock. And as I go on, today I miss it. I think I'm going back to Italy. I really do. Today, if I could go back, I would go back. But I can't go back, so I'm going to stay here. But if I had my druthers, I would go back and spend a little time there. Just so that, one, I can walk and not, and talk and act like a human being. And that was one of the big differences of coming back. Now, that might not be a big deal to you, but, it is a big deal. And it really shows you, and I could go over 100 million other things regarding the differences between Italy and America, but I won't do that today. What it reminds me of, though, is I remember all the people I met there. And I remember when I first decided to go into the entertainment industry, because I was working as a serious journalist, and a friend of mine named Don Hudson, an actor who would basically, Don was reviving his career. He's about in his 60s. And Don was reviving his career and just acted like a kid at 65. He wasn't what I call an old fart. He wasn't an old man. He was younger than some 20-year-olds I knew. And so I called him an old, and I won't use the term, because Don was the youngest guy I'd ever met, 65, with more energy than I ever saw. And he's running around with his photos, going to auditions. And I had the chance to watch Don go from rags to riches and become a very successful actor at a late age. And he reminded me of one thing. It's all in your head, Greg. It's all in your head how old you feel. And always, and that's another thing. The way Americans, the food I ate there was better. The air seemed to be, I didn't see all those chemtrails back then. This was before the 90s when I first started to notice them when I was back in the States. I didn't see any of that. And I felt a lot better. I ate a lot better. And, everything my mind was working a little better. And Don was an example. At 65, he was acting, he was acting younger than a lot of these young farts that I called old farts at 25 to 30 that I see in America today. And then, we didn't have back then the cyber world, which everybody, let's make a living as a computer technician. That's my goal in life. Now, if I'm going to sit on my butt before a computer screen my whole life, I think I'd rather be put in a cannon and shot from here to Kansas. Because who in the heck can sit and be a normal person when they don't get up they do it 24 hours a day, sitting in front of a computer screen trying to program that crap? You ever see those programs? That to me would drive me insane within a day. One of the craziest things about life, one of the reasons I enjoyed journalism, I could sit and write a story, and I got to write very quickly because I didn't like sitting. I liked going out and meeting the people and getting the story more. So I learned to write fast so I didn't have to sit in the office that long. And at that time, smoking. Everybody still smoked back then, and I didn't. And I could not stand it. And most of these journalists, man, you walk into a newsroom and it smelled like Johnny Walker Red and cigarette butts. That was your life as a journalist. And I didn't, so I didn't like being in those offices that much. But anyway, getting back to Italy, there was so many great things and people I met through Don, who got me involved in the industry back there. Now, I had no idea that Hollywood was so corrupt, or Hollywood was advancing the Vatican-led New World Order. I didn't have an idea the Vatican was advancing the Vatican-led New World Order. And when I learned it and when I started researching it, stories and stories came. It was almost as if somebody opened up a floodgate and poured into me all the things I wanted to learn about the Vatican-led New World Order within a year. It was kind of the way I learned Italian. I remember you go through a struggle. You can't speak. You can only say a couple of words. Maybe that's good, too. It's good for me. It was good for me to shut my mouth for a year. And I couldn't talk really in good sentences for a year. I'd have to say certain little words to get by. And then all of a sudden one morning I woke up and I was speaking. And I'm going, wow, that's a miracle. I'm actually saying a sentence. And then I said 10 sentences. And before you know it, I was dreaming in Italian, talking in Italian, dreaming it, thinking Italian. So if I'm going through, like right now, if I'm thinking in English. Well, back then I used to think in Italian. And so the story goes, as I learned more about the Vatican-led New World Order, I could tell you this, one little quick story. And I like to tell this story because it was my rude awakening to what they were really all about. And there's two really stories. One, how the Jesuit order and the Vatican would actually take organizations like the Priori di Sion. You probably heard that from Dan Brown's movie that was completely bogus and depicted the Illuminati fighting the Vatican, the good Vatican fighting the Illuminati, when Dan should know that the Vatican is the Illuminati. Well, when you find out that the Jesuit order created the Priori di Sion, and at the time I was there, they were writing articles that came out in the newspapers that were planted articles that the bloodline of Jesus lives, he never died on the cross, etc., etc., etc. And there was a man by named Jacques Plantard who was carrying the bloodline, and he heads up the Priori di Sion in France. Now, I found out the whole thing was bogus. The guy, if he did exist, didn't talk. He was a front man. And I found out that the Vatican actually, and the Jesuit order, actually planted these people in these stories just to create chaos, just to create this kind of Hegelian dialectic of both sides fighting each other to get their synthesis. And their synthesis is never any good. So anyway, that was one story, and that led me to believe, oh, wow, what else lies there? Another one is when I found out about the satanic worshiping and the bloodletting and the killing of children at these black masses in the Vatican. Now, that's a chilling story, and when you get to that, I didn't first believe it. But that, after I talked to people, after I put myself back then, even after I talked to people, I was still skeptical. But when I came to the States and started researching it, I am convinced that it's true. And that it goes on in many other places, like Mormon temples, and places where you wouldn't even imagine when they go out to whatever, you've heard stories about Bohemian Grove. Well, I don't think they're dumb enough to tell you exactly where this goes on, but it does. And if you don't believe me, think about the hit movie The Hunger Games and the show. And you think about that. It takes place in a dystopian future where poor and wretched masses live under the high-tech tyranny of wealthy elite. It's really depicting the kind of society the elite are trying to establish in the New World Order for you and what we talk about on this show. And I'm going to do a little in the second half hour, go over a little bit of the Hunger Games and how they actually do satanic worshiping in that movie. You'll see that they're telling you exactly what they do. Now, most people don't get it, and it's a hit show. People watch it. But they're watching their future right before their eyes, even if they're not going to be here. That's where they're headed. If we, want to really understand the truth. But getting back, as this Friday, I kind of skip around and do different things. Why don't we do something here interesting? And, I don't know if this is interesting, but maybe it'll be, to me, I enjoy the song. And also, you probably have never heard of Heather Headley, or Andrea Bocelli, and maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't, but he's not exactly a rap singer. And the song, now first of all, Andrea Bocelli to me is one of the greatest singers. He's an Italian from northern Italy. He was blind at the age of 10. His dad wanted him to be a lawyer, and he turned out to be a great opera singer, and then moved into contemporary music and does some really great songs. But every time I hear Andrea, it reminds me of when he was in Rome studying to be a singer, and I happened to catch him do Somos Novios, it's a Spanish song, at a wine bar there. And he was a young guy, and everybody said, wow, listen to this guy's voice. He wasn't famous. He wasn't anything, but a great voice. And the two things I want to mention here are the song I'm going to play for you is called The Prayer. It's written by David Foster. And it's a great song that gives me hope, and I love listening to it. Talks about God and everything. Now, let's talk the truth about Andrea Bocelli. I know he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the world. But when it comes to, he sang at the Mormon choir, the Mormon Tabernacle asked him to sing. He's sung for the Pope. He doesn't say anything bad about the Vatican. And most people, I think, are going to say, wow, is he working for them? Well, I don't think he does. And I think that some of the beauty that he brings to people outweighs the fact that he won't come public. Because if he did come public, you wouldn't hear his voice anymore. So Andrea, please, keep your thoughts to yourself about this subject, because I love your voice too much. Let me do the talking about it. And I think you see what I'm saying, folks. Some people, may know the truth and can't say it, and I hope he never goes public, because I don't want him to pay the price. His voice is too important. His voice, and I'm not talking about, for example, now if you're a person that speaks up openly about the Vatican, that's fine. Speak up. If you're a pastor, speak up. But in this case, think about what I'm saying. There's got to be an exception to every rule. And so I'll give Andrea a pass, only because I know that his voice brings so much beauty to people, and I'm going to give you an example of it right here in a song, like I said, written by David Foster, called The Prayer. If I can get this up, and the lyrics are quite good. Wow. And I think you know what I mean after you hear that song. A great, great song. They did that. The lady singing was Heather Headley, and she's also a great singer in her own right. And they performed that in Las Vegas on one of his first contemporary albums after breaking out of the world of opera. And I recommend, when you want to just enjoy a voice, go to any one of Andrea Bocelli's songs. And it's really unfortunate if you don't understand Italian. I love that language. Every time I hear it, I start speaking it to myself and going, oh my God, my hands start moving, and I start looking for the first place I can boil some water to make some spaghetti, and life goes on. But anyway, I played that for a reason, and the reason is that it's a beautiful, beautiful song, and to me it stands for finding God yourself, and not being forced like I was as a child to go through some priest. And that's a great, good. The lyrics to me are very good, and the way he sings it is and it never gets old. I play it many times. I'm going to have to take a break. I want to come back with a couple things regarding the Hunger Games, how that relates to what the elite want in the New World Order. But I'm going to play for you something quite interesting that I found. A very rare tape from a very special American singer who I think you'd love to hear do an original version of the song. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased. It has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this Friday, October 30th, 2015. Now, if you caught the beginning of my show, I told you that I thought yesterday all day was Friday, and today was Saturday, and I just learned about a half hour ago or an hour ago that it was only Friday. So just think about that for a second. Did I really? I was thinking, boy, how crazy and stupid I am. I'm losing my mind. I should know the days. And I explained why I thought I'd forgotten, because I've been so preoccupied with my good friend Miss Moose, my dog of 13 years. We've been together 13, 14 years, and she was having an operation at the vet, and it was pretty serious. But she's fine, resting with me now. But I'm done, thinking about things. I really did a good thing. I actually gained another day. You see, yesterday, to me, was Friday, and today's Friday. So I actually have gained a day, haven't I? And, it's kind of neat. I've actually gained a whole day in my life. Because in my mind, yesterday was Friday and today is Friday. So I've got 48 hours of Friday. Now think about this. If I would have died yesterday, would I have actually died because I thought it was Friday? I couldn't. No, I wouldn't have been able to die. Because I thought it was Friday, and actually it was Thursday. And if Thursday was my designated day to die, then me thinking it was Friday, I wouldn't have died. So then I would have woke up today, Friday, and passed over the day of my death. Think about it. So now, guess what? I may never die. You ever think about that? Yeah, because I was supposed to die on Thursday, and I thought it was Friday, and now today's Friday, and I overpassed Thursday, so I'm not, you know what? I think I found immortality. Wow. Anyway, those are the kinds of things that I like to think about. And, there's many more. And you can catch a lot of my thoughts. Let's see, where am I going to be next? 2 weeks at a little club in San Diego doing a little comedy act. And I do a lot on the New World Order, so I actually turned it into a night of laughter because they are really a funny bunch when you really start thinking about them. And I start out that, people don't realize how crazy and funny they really are when you start really thinking about them. And realizing that maybe we can't change their evil and demonic ways, only within our hearts. Maybe that gives you the opportunity to laugh at them because they really are a bunch of screwed up, funny people. If they're biggest screwed up, funny people I've ever met in the world. In fact, they actually think that I believe them. And I want them to think that I believe them, because it's really fun to let them talk on and on and on. And when you start really listening to what they're saying, it is so absurd. Even to the fact I've gotten to the point where when they start telling me the earth is round, I start laughing even bigger. Because I know in my heart it isn't. Now, there's been a big controversy amongst people using the Bible to define whether the earth is round or flat. Now, I have my own thoughts about that, but then again, let's consider the fact that it may not be any of those shapes. What if it was a square? What if it was shaped like a fig Newton? Or perhaps, what if it was shaped like a dove? What if it was shaped like, a portrait of Maureen O'Hara? Who knows? Now, what I'm getting at is that, does it matter? Yeah, well, it does. It does matter. I want to know the shape of the earth that I live on. And I kind of think that if you use the Bible, at least from my point of view, you come away 100% sure, to me, that it isn't a globe. It's a circle, flat. Let's figure out from there. That's just my thoughts about it. And you know what? I've been wrong before. So all you Bible interpreters out there, if you want to weigh in on that, go right ahead. But it's a great, great subject. And I always like to, I did a number of shows about it. I've listened to hundreds of hours and hundreds, and I still want to do some more about those lion SOBs at NASA. And I do a whole routine on those guys too. It is so funny that when you watch their films, and I keep telling them, you got to get better at doing these spacewalks underwater. I'm seeing bubbles, I'm seeing scuba tanks, and I watch closely because I'm a scuba diver. So, guys, come on, get a little better at that. But, all right. I promised you, where are we here? That I would do, okay, got my bearings straight. Oh, there it's starting, that's starting too quickly. Okay, I'll wait for that. All right, so what I want to do for you is go back to, I'm going to talk about the Hunger Games a little bit. And I'm running out of time, but probably need a couple shows on this. But I will just touch on that and show you what the elite have planned for us and how they're using that show to tell us what they want to do in the future. Who knows if it'll be exactly like that. But I know the satanic worshiping they do in that show, the child killings, and all the things are going on today as we speak anyway. But they want to show us on TV. Now, I go back a long way when it comes to the song I want to play you. And the reason I'm playing it, it was one of my favorite songs for such a long time. And I started playing the guitar when I was about 10 years old. And I did it because my mom passed away right around that time. And it was shortly before that I started playing the guitar. She was a piano player, and she wanted me to play the piano, and I hated it. And I love her ever since for not, a really idiot parent would have forced me to sit there and play the piano because I could play a little bit. But I hated it, and I told her, and she was the kind of person that said, well, what would you like to play? And I said, I like string instruments. I love the guitar. So she got me one. And after she passed away, I played the guitar, and I never really got that good at it. I never played it because I wanted to get that good at it or be a guitar player and play in some country band or something. I did it to take away the pain of losing my mother. And if you don't believe me, that, many people won't admit those things. And still to this day, I play it for that reason. And one of the songs that I played a lot that caught my ear was when I grew up, you had to see The Wizard of Oz and Judy Garland and all, of her great stuff. And the point I'm trying to make is the song Over the Rainbow. That, to me, back then had the significance of going above and being with my mother, where she's at. But, it has other significance, too. And I believe when you listen to the song that, and you remember the old Wizard of Oz, the man controlling everything who was faking everything, that kind of New World Order thing when they were going to see the wizard and all that stuff. But the rainbow was this kind of admittance that there is a God above there, and that it always, to me, tells me that the world isn't round like it. It's over that, it's above where you find God. And the way it's depicted in our world through NASA is that there's this universal place, and there are millions of people and planets and all these things moving out. I don't agree with it. And One Flew Over the Over the Rainbow now has a double significance to me. And why don't we listen? This is an interesting take. It is Judy Garland. She's all dressed up like a tramp. She was doing a theater performance. And it's an ultra rare version, and it's the way that she wanted to do it, and her daughter introduces it. So let's listen to this, to Judy Garland.
There's one song that truly belongs only to my mother. She seldom sang it on television. The finale of her first special in 1955 is the only existing film of the number as she performed it in hundreds of concerts.
Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney top. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow. If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why
Okay, that was a rare song. And when you see the video, go to Judy Garland Over the Rainbow Live Ultra Rare, and you'll get to watch her facial expressions, which are quite interesting during that song. And, I know you could probably come up with a lot of meanings. When she says, when happy little bluebirds fly above the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I? You might think, well, what is that? Okay, she's trying to go to this place where she's living. No, I think she's talking about she wants to be there with God right now. And I think that relationship that you find with God will bring you there. And life is short. It's so short. I mean, you start realizing how little time you have the older you get. And it isn't like when you're 20 thinking you'll live forever. But the point is, what's that first feeling going to be like when you're over the rainbow? What's that first sight going to be? What's that first word going to be? Are there words? What is it going to really be like? I guess we can only imagine. And we're probably all wrong, but why take away the childlike imagination, the beauties of God in heaven, and all the things we don't have here on earth, that all of the things that make it worthwhile to believe in God? And tell you the truth, I was one of the biggest doubters there ever was. And I know as soon as I get over that rainbow, my first words are going to be, "Hey, Mom, it's good to see you. It's been a while, and you haven't changed one bit." And I can just imagine the beauty and the happiness it will be to reunite and to see God, to understand. I'd say to him, well, why in the heck didn't you, it doesn't look too round like a sphere to me. It doesn't look like a globe to me. And he said, well, you were catching on there at the end. You were catching on. And how come, then I'd say something like, well, how come everything isn't so clear? Why don't you just say this is, he said, and my mom breaks in and says something like, didn't you always like surprises? I'd say, yeah. Remember on your birthday how you always want to know what the present was? And if I'd have told you, your birthday wouldn't have been half as beautiful. And I go, yeah. Well, she said, think about now, it's the exact same thing. This is your first birthday above the rainbow in the heavenly place of God. If we'd have told you everything, it wouldn't have meant as much. Okay, let's get going. And so we're off, to a whole new world, a whole new life that we can only imagine now is beautiful. But imagine how beautiful it really will be. And the heck with the New World Order, right? They can have this old place down here. Let them play games. Let them blow up people. Let them do what they want. It's so ridiculous. But they'll never, ever have the enjoyment that I just had right now of even thinking of that. See what I mean? They're not going to think of that. They're going to live in the abyss. Their thoughts are even idiotic. I do a whole thing on their idiotic thoughts, what they actually think about when they're not spewing out idiotic statements, like the Pope and all his fellow followers and Obama and all these guys. What are they really thinking about? And I do a whole thing on that. And I'll tell you what, I would rather die 1,000 deaths than to think 1 minute like any of those guys. Because this is actually as crazy as you'd ever want to meet. But anyway, that is my little take on The Wizard of Oz, One Flew Over the Rainbow, etc., etc. And you know what? We got the Hunger Games that I was meaning to tell you about. And I'm running so short on time. Well, I got 6 minutes. I guess that's enough to get started on it. But what kind of world we live in when this kind of show is so popular? I mean, it's incredible. I haven't seen it, to be honest with you. I have not seen it. I've only read, well, I've watched a couple takes, and I've read a whole bunch about it. And I watched the original. There was a pilot or something, so I got an idea of what they were going to do. But to watch the craziness, and so I've relied on other people who have followed this show to give the message out, and it's a gigantic marketing campaign. They spend millions of dollars on this garbage. But it didn't take long for the world to become a worldwide sensation. Now, maybe that gives you an idea that they got us in the, the elites know they got the masses in the palm of their hands. It's as component, takes place in this dystopian future. Hunger Games, it paints a grim picture of the world of tomorrow, to say it mildly. And whether it be from a social, economical, political point of view, spiritual point of view, it's not very nice. And thank God there's a place over the rainbow. In short, this Big Brother nightmare movie and show is basically rich elites thrive on the backs of a starving population. Meanwhile, the perversity, voyeurism, mass media is taken to absurd levels and is used by the government as a glue to keep its unjust social order intact. And that's really what the United Nations is all about. It's an unjust social order, but they claim it's going to be a just social order. And it's very popular amongst teenagers and young adults. And it gives teenagers a glimpse of the not-too-distant future. Maybe, is it getting them ready for it? Perhaps. Is it basically saying you're going to live this way someday, so get used to it? It doesn't really take a crystal ball to see the elite are trying to take the world in that direction, does it? Just think about everything around us today. And the author, Susan Collins, I'd like to find out a little bit about her. But is she communicate an anti-New World Order message to youth by showing its dangers? Or is it getting its youth used to the idea? I think it's getting them used to the idea. What could really happen in the future? It takes place. Where does it take place? The Hunger Games takes place in, it seems like, descriptions of the New World Order is planned today by the global elite. One of its main characteristics of the New World Order is the dissolving of regular nation states, right? To form a single world government, to be ruled by a central power, a single one religion, to be ruled by a central power. And it's fully represented in the Hunger Games, takes place in this totalitarian nation that encompasses the entire Northern American territory. The United States and Canada, therefore, have merged into a single entity, a step that many predict will happen before the full creation of the New World Order, right? They're getting us used to it, correct? Yeah, that's what I think. They're really getting us used to it. And when we further look at this, Concepts of freedom, democracy, which kind of exists today only as a flowery statement, have disappeared totally. It's replaced by a high-tech dictatorship based on what? Surveillance, monitoring, mass media indoctrination, police oppression, radical division of social classes. What's happening today? Same thing. And in this dictatorial state, most people live in a third world country conditions, constantly subjected to poverty, famine, and sickness. And if you think about the formation, it kind of tells you in this movie that it's apparently the result of a devastating event that endangered the economic collapse of North America. Same thing that's going on today. In District 12, where this takes place, the home of the hero of the movie, Katniss Everdeen, the locals live in conditions similar to pre-industrial era, where families of coal miners lived makeshift in shacks and eat rodents as meals. That's just kind of an idea of what they're doing here. It gets really interesting when you see the satanic worshiping, how they show it in this movie, or in the Hunger Games. And we'll get into that in another day. But all of this is social engineering. All of this is geared to get you used to what the future is going to be on this earth. And can anyone tell me, over the years, has it gotten any better? No. Surveillance will get worse. Poverty will get worse. Famine will get worse. Sickness will get worse. And I think there's a way out of it, though. And we'll talk about some of those ways on future shows. But anyway, thanks for listening. Again, I've had 2 Fridays, and it feels good. Okay, if you caught my show, you know what I mean. But anyway, we'll be back on Monday. That is, if I can keep the days straight anymore. Back on the Investigative Journal. In the meantime, have a good weekend. Don't forget to push back your clock.